All right, folks, welcome to War of Right 1776. We are in Cox's push. We probably have, all right, so we have 323. We just had 400 on Garland Stand. Without artillery, this should be a fantastic map. It's a great map with artillery, but considering we have basically a prevalence of inaccurate buck and ball, we'll have to wait and see how this one goes. The Americans have done pretty well. Yeah. They got to be happy with the ticket trade so far. And so they're going to push down the point here. Right? The field's here. Gives almost quasi Patriot-esque vibes. And in fact, I think Mel Gibson is here. I saw his name in the previous map. He was here. But this should be a fantastic one. Those Brits, I don't know what the actual small arms are. I know that there's kind of a stand-in Brown Bess, which is basically a reskinned, less accurate 1842, but I don't know more than that. I guess some Americans worked their way all the way up there. Interesting. Very interesting. So, yeah, Americans got to be happy with how it started. And now if they cap early, they could throw all of this back. Maybe they're concerned that the British are trying to get away, and the British can pull up into that tree line, and that will be the end of it. So the Americans might have to play cap recap. Again, without artillery and some other things, I think the Americans can play this one fairly well. I mean, the Americans go for the early cap, and then they just kind of play on the half stone wall, and you know, not the Confederates. If the British disappear, you can probably assume that they're in the corn, and just move from there. All right, so the Brits are going to reset. They got to come in, and looks like we have one group moving over there. They're probably going to move to those rocks. Some are already flirting the stone wall up there. We'll see if the Americans pivot to deal with it. They are right on cue. It is getting dark. It rains. You haven't played since the new update. Even before 1776, the weather update, it pretty much rains every like 7 minutes in this game for a while. So yeah, it's neat, but they are. But they're playing with your tickets, so they can be. All right, I don't see too much to that. I don't know if that was a movement by the British to draw the Americans out of position. If you're the Americans and you got two companies here, you could probably start sliding a bit back to the right. If that group at the rocks decides to pull up, great, let them pull up. But you don't want your friendlies over here who I think are probably well embedded in a map that's mostly 1842s, but you don't want them to get steamrolled by the British who might be moving. If we want a quick look at where the Brits are, they are compact. I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know if they're thinking the same thing I was thinking or what, but it's like some at least are moving to make sure that they don't get cut off. Who doesn't like War of Rights in the rain? But yeah, there was an attempt to use the corn, right? But kind of everybody, their brother's sister, all the rest, they kind of see that coming. That is a very odd blue hue. Whoa. Am I the only one that's seeing that? Possibly. But yeah, this yes. This British company, yeah, they have a flag back there. They'll be able to do a little bit here against the speed bump that is this group, I think. But as this group gets reinforced, I think that this is just a losing trade. It's not bad from the British because they're playing with the Americans' tickets, right? They have to recap, and if you're down as the defenders, you're going to get the attackers' tickets back. So it's their ticket level back, but no, it's not like the Brits were really far ahead on tickets, and this is going to be a problem. Well, I guess the speed bump punches back, and yeah, sure enough, that was likely to happen. Again, I don't know if they're really a distraction, and there's a... let's see the Brits retrying that corn thing, but they are thick here. Americans just got to play the distances and the kind of swing points and try to get in the first good volley when the British eventually come to point, because well, hit T, you'll see the crossed flags. You know, the point of contention, it's not just directly under that. It kind of stretches off in weird ways where you can't always see where it is, and sometimes it's in places you don't expect it, but you do need to get there. Alright, so some Brits are going to retry the corn thing. Others are going to try to come out here on the right as dank as they can. They're going to be disappointed if they try to go too far that way, but we'll just save that. Might be Americans who are going up there to the middle. I don't know if they're good. Maybe they're doing it to get an angle on this group. Might be it. I don't know if they understand how close they are to enemies, but that's their problem, not ours. Brits, man, you can see how high some of that bucking ball goes, right? We're up here. Right, we're hanging off the rim, and no, I think we're actually standing on the rim at this point, but yeah, bucking ball does it. All right, we'll see what the Brits are able to come up with here. These guys have the right attitude. That's what we wanted to see. That's what I was really just hoping to see in this map. Kind of give me my Mel Gibson experience here. There you go. I'm surprised this group, with those rocks and that foliage, are getting whittled down like that. Granted, not having the flag hurts, but it's raining bucking ball down there. We'll see. The Brits, they got a lot of time because the Americans capped. The Brits were still in battle ready, and so it's like the full, what is it, 21, 22 minutes? It's a long timer. But the Brits haven't really pressed the attack too much. That group at the rocks is now depleted. None of the guys who are in it are picking up the flag. I don't know if they're playing dead and hoping that the Americans run off or what, but the Americans have had absolute field day on those rocks, and now the Brits are probably going to retry the corn.
Get your reloads and hold your fire. Get your reloads and hold your fire.
Correct. So I think it's happening. I think the Brits are just collecting everyone and then they're going in. The Americans don't, I mean, I understand they want the out of formation tickets, but it doesn't matter because you're already up in tickets. If they recap, they're going to go up to your ticket level, so probably the more important thing is how you position yourself for the inevitable attack through the corn.
Yeah, I'm gonna open for these fellas.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it. I hate defending on the backside of corn because you never really see what's coming until it's up on you, and it's one of those rare cases where the shooter doesn't really have the advantage and actually the person who's running up does. Alright, just in the nick of time, we'll see if they have loads. The Americans arrive at the corner of the corn, and so the Hessians who are going up, again, they really don't have anything to lose. There might be something to said for trying to consolidate against the Americans, as yeah, their friendlies are coming, but they're not that close. And assuming that the Americans keep their flags, this is not going to go well.
Get the flags up, get the flags up. Flags up.
Yep, they did.
Hold here.
Are we up to... Okay, so we're not quite back to 400. We were at 400 on Garlands. We'll say that it was a count of rain, but we should have another big action here right at the corner of the corn, so... I'm not sure. Okay, I guess it's moving out now. But you could see even with the naked eye, it's not a compact movement. It looks like some of the Brits still want to make the mad dash right for point. There is a small contingent of Americans there to oppose it without a flag, but the Americans seem to think that the main effort, somebody's got to be able to see that flag. Okay, this time there's no one really there to oppose it. I lied. Yeah, thinking the same thing. A little off the other way there. Alright, the Brits have reached the corn. They're in a shootout. This is not one the Americans would love to be in. Alright, they've decided they're going to charge. I think that's because I see the American flag moving down the side. So what the Americans did is they let the Brits come up. Brits are kind of tunneling on the group that's in front of them in the field, and it's what they can see, and the Americans just hopped into the corn. They're going in here for probably trying to get a quick wipe. Well, they're not as wiped as you think, but they are mostly wiped. But I think Colt or whoever was right. You got to pull it back to point, because the main concern is not whether you wipe them or wipe them all, but yeah, it would be great to wipe them all, right, if they're on the other side, but you don't want to have too many of your guys pulled off point, because what the defenders can do is they can throw a bunch of tickets away when they're in the counterattack, drawing more of your units out of position, and then they concentrate their main effort on the point of contention, overwhelm it, recap, and then they go up to the attackers' ticket levels, and they didn't want that. I don't... Yeah. So I suspect some Brits will try to get that back. It looks like there was a successful Rambo flag recovery there. Okay, so the Americans are skirmished out there. The Americans have really skirmed the British back. Alright, and now I see why. The British weren't going that way. That makes more sense. I wonder if the Americans will try to repeat the success they just had. Alright. That is... I think that's one of the Hessian flags. By the way, the Americans are trying it. I don't know that it's worked as well this time, but I thought well, maybe it didn't. Maybe it was a different green flag. It looked like there was a green flag making its way down, but maybe that wasn't it. Just a hallucination. Nothing to worry about. The Americans shouldn't be too disappointed with this, even if this is not the greatest shootout they've ever been a part of, because they're so far. Oh, maybe they really didn't like how it was going and they thought it was better to just give cold steel. I was gonna say, you know, they're just wasting time. Right? If the Brits wanted to shoot that out, the Brits aren't winning it. But yeah, that was really well timed. You can see Colt wiped him, and he's going back. I think he's going in for the tail of this British charge here. I don't know if you can see it. There's going to be a whole mess. It didn't look great for the Brits there, but yeah, it's that's rough. So I think the Brits have time for one more, and they're gonna need a moment to reset, so we'll let them get reset and then we'll bring you back when you have something to show you. Alright, so the call from the Americans is everybody sprint to the left. I mean, this is usually the desperation play. Not that the CSA gets too desperate on this one, but you can see the Hessians. There's a little bit of a split push. I don't know if they're going for their flags. Now with a minute and a half to get back here. It's going to be rough. This is going to be wiped.
Bayonets down.
The first wave is going to be wiped. Second wave, the Hessians are probably going to be wiped. And the responsibility might finally fall on them. But they need to be moving up now, because otherwise this entire Patriot force is going to wipe them. They're going to get all their flags up, and then they're all going to turn. All 4 companies are going to turn. They're going to be focused on you. Of course, if the Americans never actually pick their flag up, then, you know, they don't have to spawn on anybody. But just like the last round was decided by flag management, here, well, it's kind of like that, but it's coordination. Brits are, yeah, that one company, I mean, you're now in the unenviable position of your friendlies are down. Yikes, and so all the Brits can do is kind of YOLO charge and hope for the best. Hey, let's make it glorious. Alright, well this one is short as some War of Rights maps go, but it did not disappoint me. I only wish it had gone longer. But take a look at final casualties. Certainly well played to the Union. I think there are going to be some growing pains here with learning these maps, particularly with the weapons that are available, and plus there's just an influx of new folks, but very nicely done to both sides, but in particular the Americans.